Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Damo Top 25. So, pretty big weekend of college football last week. I guess yesterday. Knocked out. Actually, we didn't really knock. We did knock some people out. I am gonna have my actual playoff list later on. Because there are. I think we've got our playoff pool. I think we know. We don't know who's gonna be there, but we know who is in the running, who controls their destiny and all that. Okay, so as far as last week, Oregon took down Illinois 38-9, dominated Illinois. Good win for Oregon. Miami took down Florida State and actually did not have a one possession game, so that's good for Miami because Florida State is not very good. BYU took down Wisconsin 37-24. Iowa State. Wait, no, Penn State. Penn State took down Wisconsin 28-13. I misspoke there. BYU took down UCF 37-24. Iowa State and Georgia were on bye. Ohio State took down Nebraska 21-17. And actually Nebraska had the lead there at the end. But Ohio State pulled it out. Okay, what do we have up next? Clemson. Clemson was on bye. Clemson was just chilling. And this was a good week to be just chilling. And next week next week's, I wouldn't say next week's as big of a match. The matchups last week, they were all like top 25 or you're right outside the top 25. And we had mass chaos going on. The further we go down, we are going to get into some shit. Okay. So Boise State took down UNLV. UNLV was on my outside looking in. So UNLV was right outside my top 25. Boise took them down 29-24. Also, the teams that are the 25, you're gonna see why I'm saying this. The teams that were 26 to 40 pretty much all lost. There were so many losers. It was hard for me to fit teams into the top 25 because I'm like, who do I even put there? And maybe some controversial takes on the top 25 later down, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it matched up with the AP poll too, because I'm imagining me and the AP poll are getting pretty close. Okay. We had Texas. Texas took on Vanderbilt and won 27-24. That game was pretty close the whole time. I mean, Vandy put up a good fight. Indiana 7-0. Wait, where is it? Indiana took down Washington 31-17. So another nice win for Indiana. But actually, the biggest thing that happened for Indiana is Indiana fucking destroyed Nebraska, while Ohio State was struggling at best. So there's really not going to be a whole lot of changes in this section. LSU is going to be changing. Not a whole lot of changes, but I do have one little thing I'm going to switch up. We are going to move Indiana up the board. Pitt won against Syracuse 41-13, so another good win for Pitt. And Pitt is taking on SMU this week, so this is going to be a huge matchup for these two teams. Also, Pitt is the only the only team that plays Clemson and SMU. Miami avoids the other top 25 ACC teams, so Miami's not going to have to play Clemson. Miami's not going to have to play Pitt. Miami's not going to have to play SMU. So I think for our ACC playoff contenders, Miami's definitely in there. And the real question is, it'd be really funny if Pitt lost both of these games. Not that I want Pitt to lose, but if Pitt loses, you'll have Clemson and SMU both with no ACC losses. Although SMU or Clemson could still lose, so it's not entirely set in stone that we'd have two undefeateds, but and it would actually be three if say Miami, Clemson, and SMU all went undefeated. So who we get in the ACC championship, and really who we get out of the playoffs? Like, would they take the conference championship loser, or would they take the team that was left out? I'm really not sure. This is the first year with the 12-team playoff, so we don't really know the rules. Okay, and that was a good win though. Syracuse was right on my outside looking in too. Tennessee 6-1 was on by. Kansas State took on Kansas 29-27 and struggled. They did not have a good time. LSU, the first of many top 25 teams to fall. LSU took on Texas A&M, lost 23-38. It looks like Texas A&M's finally figured out their quarterback situation. The Texas A&M offense from the second half looked dominant. Like, I mean, I can't think of a Texas A&M like Johnny Football Texas A&M, but I'm not gonna lie, that's a bad comparison. But I can't think of a better Texas A&M offense if they can keep up like that. I mean, obviously, they put in a new quarterback. Sometimes that's enough to throw another team off. So maybe that's all it was. But if A&M can keep that up, A&M's gonna go to the playoffs. Okay, so LSU, goodbye. Actually, we'll see you again, but I need you to fall down for now. Army was on bye week here at number 16. Navy I had right after them, lost to Notre Dame 51-14. So goodbye, Navy. Got absolutely dominated there by Notre Dame. Illinois lost to Oregon 9-38. So goodbye, Illinois. Actually, some of these teams are coming back, and you'll also see why once I get down into my after the 25. Notre Dame won against Navy, 51-14. Washington State took down San Diego State 29-26. A&M beat LSU 38-23. SMU. Okay, if you didn't see SMU's game last night, literally their whole season rested on a field goal from Duke, and they managed to block the kick with like I don't know how much time was left, but it was like under a minute to send the game to overtime where they won it in overtime. But both teams scored in overtime. Duke went for the 2-point conversion and didn't get it. So that was a pretty close game. I don't think there's a huge separation from SMU to Duke, but either way though, SMU pulled it off. The blocked kick was legendary. Like, to be honest, I was sitting there thinking, man, there goes SMU's season. Because like I said, if they would have lost, they would probably be out of the conference title running. Because I think Miami's definitely going to be one spot, and then the question is which of these three teams fills the other spot. Okay, SMU won. Liberty lost to a winless team, Kennesaw State. Right? Yep, Kennesaw State, 24-27. So I put them in the top 25, and I guess that's like the kiss of death, because as soon as I put them in there, they are right back out. Also for Liberty, I do my rankings down to like 60. I think. Let me see what I did it to this week. 66. To be honest, everything after 66, they're not relevant to the playoff conversation. Really, everything after like 35 isn't really relevant to the playoff conversation. Now maybe they could sneak in, but it would take a lot of chaos in the next few weeks, and I don't really see that happening. But Liberty fell all the way down to 53 for me. So in my actual rankings, Liberty is now that was a huge loss. I mean, just a terrible loss. So Liberty, you are out, and as far as the playoffs are concerned, you are not making the playoffs. Okay, who else do we have this week? Missouri lost to Alabama, got destroyed by Alabama, and Vandy lost to Texas, 24-27. So, goodbye, Missouri. Goodbye, Vandy. We're going to put Illinois right there. Okay, so these are the survivors. Now let's throw them together in an order that looks right. Okay, so Oregon. Oregon is still going to be my number 1. Miami's still going to be number 2. BYU's staying at number 3. Penn State's staying at number 4. Iowa State is staying at 5. And here's our first little change. And people might not agree with this, but I don't care. They looked way better than Ohio State. And maybe they shouldn't be ahead of Georgia. But they're undefeated. Georgia's not. Georgia, if you've got a problem with it, win all your games. So we're going to slide all of these teams down 1. Maybe we should just slide Ohio State down 1. But to be honest, I don't really see a problem with all these teams sliding down 1. They're all still in the top 12. And theoretically, all these teams still control their destiny. These teams all control their destiny. Now, Army, that's kind of up for debate because I think Army could beat Notre Dame and still possibly get left out. But the problem is I also think Notre Dame's going to beat Army. So, and there are going to be a couple more little switch-ups because I've got a pretty good idea of who we're taking on. And we know some of the matchups, and I know who I think is going to, like, for the Notre Dame Army game, I think Notre Dame's going to win. So, spoiler alert, Notre Dame's going to be ahead of Army. But at 10, we got Boise State. 11, we got Texas. And then Pitt staying at 12, even with a good win. That was a good win against Syracuse. But there's just nowhere to move up. There's nowhere to go. Tennessee. Tennessee at 13. Kansas State is at 14. And here I've got Notre Dame. I've got Notre Dame sliding up to 15. And I think Notre Dame controls their own destiny. I think if Notre Dame wins out, they will be in the playoffs. Specifically because of these Army and Navy wins. They've really helped prop them up. Also, a couple of these teams are going to lose. So Ohio State still has to play Penn State, and Ohio State still has to play Indiana. So I know that would only give these two teams one loss, which might put them in the at-large bid, but you really want to make your conference championship game, which Ohio State and Penn State and Indiana, I think, all control their destinies. Although there is a situation where, kind of like with the ACC situation, where if Ohio State loses to Indiana and Penn State, you would have an undefeated Oregon, an undefeated Penn State, and an undefeated Indiana. And I think Oregon is for sure going. There's no way you leave Oregon out. But Penn State versus Indiana, they don't actually play. So if they both beat Ohio State, which is a tall ask. I mean, I still don't know if I would pick either team to beat Ohio State. Although Indiana did look way better against Nebraska than Ohio State did. So, maybe they can both pull it off, but we're gonna have to find out. But there's a weird scenario where if these two teams win, Ohio State will definitely be out. But then we've got 3 teams that need to go to the conference championship, but we've only got 2 spots. So I'm curious to see what will end up happening there. But either way, I think if you're up here, everybody up here controls their own destiny, including Texas A&M. Speaking of, Texas A&M is going to move up to 16. I'm moving Army down. And here's why: because they're going to lose to Notre Dame. I don't see them winning that game. So I'm sorry, Army. You're going to stick around in the top 25, maybe even after you lose, because you'll see here in just a second. We had a bunch of top 25 teams that lost that are going to stick around, which I would have preferred getting them out of there, but there's just nobody to replace them with. Literally nobody. Okay. So we've got SMU right here, and Alabama. Welcome back to the top 25 after taking down Missouri. Just absolutely destroyed Missouri. So now we've got a nice little circle of suck between Missouri, SMU, and Alabama, where Vandy beat Alabama, Missouri beat Vandy, and Alabama kicked the shit out of Missouri. So Alabama is now my highest two-loss team, my highest rated 2-loss team, and we've got some more, and way too many SEC teams. Okay, so LSU, welcome back. The reason they are here is because of Ole Miss. They are lucky they have that win at Ole Miss, because otherwise they would not be in the top 25. Although, like I said just a second ago, I'll show you once we get down to the 25, or like 26, 27, 28. You'll see why there's nowhere to take them. Okay, and also, I mean, they lost to a top 25 team, so that's not a huge deal. So next up, we got Illinois. Illinois is going to be staying in the top 25, losing to Oregon. I mean, I've got a top 10 team right here that lost to Oregon. I've got another top 10 team right here that lost to Oregon. So ain't no shame in that. Oregon's got a really solid resume. I mean, they have the best resume in the country, I think. Georgia will have a pretty good resume by the end of this. And if Ohio State wins out, they will also have a really good resume. Because Georgia still has, they take on Tennessee. And okay, so as far as the SEC championship's concerned, I think it'll either be Georgia or Tennessee or A&M and Texas. So one of these two teams will go, and one of these two teams will go. Texas plays Texas A&M. Georgia plays Tennessee. So A&M's the only one that's still undefeated in conference play, but because Texas only has one loss, if they beat A&M, that'll knock them out. If Georgia beats Tennessee, that'll knock them out. If Tennessee beats Georgia, that'll knock them out. LSU's and Alabama are just watching from home, praying that these other teams lose to teams they should not lose to. Okay, next up, number 23, Ole Miss. Maybe I have been discounting you all season. Where you at? Where you at? Ole Miss. They're going to be right here at 23. We will put Missouri right here at 24 and Vandy right here at 25. So these two did not move at all, even though they lost. Why didn't they move, even though they lost? Well, let's take a look at the number 26 team. Nebraska. Okay, yeah, Nebraska is number 26. And they're 5-3. I'm not putting... actually, I guess Vandy's 5-3 too. So I guess you could argue. And actually, Nebraska has better losses. I might be talking myself into Nebraska over Vandy right now. But next up we got Colorado. Well, actually, Nebraska's fine right here. And either way, I don't think Vandy or Nebraska are playoff contenders. Neither of these two teams are going to be going to the playoffs. Although they are the best 3-loss teams with a chance. But it would take a lot of chaos happening around them. Where is the next team? Colorado. We will move Colorado right here to 27. Colorado's actually been solid. I mean, they're 6-2. Only losses are to Nebraska and Kansas State. So those are teams that are better than them. You know, Colorado's beating everybody who's worse than them, losing to everybody who's better than them, just like Nebraska. So we're going to call this the Nebraska line. If you're below the Nebraska line, you're... Actually, I wanted to say if you're below the Nebraska line, you're not going to be in the playoffs. But actually, Colorado could possibly make the playoffs. Not necessarily because they're so good, but if we have mass chaos here in the next few weeks, I think the committee would really want to put in Colorado and Alabama. They would drive up the ratings. So if we can get a 2-loss team in there, it's going to be Alabama and it's going to be Colorado. Okay, who do we have up next? So this is why these teams didn't fall very far. And you could argue whether Vandy or Nebraska should be in here. I don't really think it matters. Syracuse. Where is Syracuse? There we go. They're going to be right here at number 28. UNLV going to be up here at 29. Once again, these teams lost to top 25 teams other than Colorado. UNLV lost to Boise. Duke's going to be right here. I mean, Duke, there's not a huge separation between Duke and SMU. They're pretty close too. Navy. Okay, Navy only fell down to 31, and then Memphis. Memphis is going to be 32. Where is Memphis? Right here. Okay, so after this spot right here, your playoff hopes are gone. You do not have playoff hopes. The playoffs will be 12 teams from this pool, in my mind. Now, there are some other 3-loss teams that could come get work their way in the top 25. They can work their way into the top 25, but they're not going to be playoff teams. And the only reason, well, Nebraska can't even make the playoffs. The reason I say these teams could make the playoffs, Memphis has 1 loss. Liberty's out. Liberty lost to Kennesaw State. Liberty's not going to be in there. But these 2-loss, 1-loss teams, I don't think they're necessarily eliminated. Nebraska is eliminated. So I guess you could argue that Nebraska should be further behind, but Nebraska is better than Colorado. So uh, we still have that win there. I know they're down a game, but I think Nebraska's played harder competition than Colorado has. Okay, next up is my playoffs section. Like the old Colts coach. Um, because they're not going to the playoffs. They're not necessarily. I mean, they still got games to play for, but they're not going to the playoffs. And there's really no big separation for me there either. I mean, it's pretty close. So I've got like Virginia Tech right here, 5-3. Arkansas, where's Arkansas? I got Arkansas right here. Louisville, Louisville will be right there, 35. Iowa will be 36. And also, I've gotten probably a little less consistent on making sure teams are still ranked ahead of teams they've beaten. But the main point is these guys really, everything after Memphis doesn't matter. And even Memphis, I don't really think matters. I think the actual playoff teams are right here, A&M and up. SMU also controls their own destiny, so maybe SMU should be ahead of like if you did this, it's 17 and up. Those those will be the playoff teams. But I still have Army and Washington State ahead of SMU. Right. No, no. Oh my gosh, I flipped it. I flipped it last night. SMU is ahead of. Yeah, okay, I missed that. So SMU is ahead of Army for me, and that is why because Army controls their own destiny. Washington State seems like they maybe should, so should Army. I guess Army's not completely eliminated because they could beat Notre Dame, but I think Notre Dame's going to win that matchup. But Army does control their own destiny, I guess, because if they beat Notre Dame, I could see them taking the Notre Dame spot because the playoff committee will be reserving a spot for Notre Dame if they win out. Um, so Army could potentially steal that spot. Washington State, they are at the mercy of Boise. If they have a bunch of teams fall from this top 17, they could potentially work their way up. But I don't think they control their own destiny because I don't think even if they win out that they're guaranteed a playoff spot. Mainly because of that loss to Boise. Because Boise will take that spot. And I think we're going to get multiple. We're definitely getting multiple Big Ten teams. We're definitely getting multiple Big Ten teams and probably multiple SEC teams. How many multiple? I could see at least. I could see 3 Big Ten teams. Although I think that's most likely if everybody beats Ohio State. So if Penn State and Indiana beat Ohio State. For the SEC, I think Tennessee might get knocked out. A&M might also get knocked out. So I think we're going to get at least 2 SEC teams. We could get 3. Okay, also, where were we here? Iowa, South Carolina. I mean, you guys see how these teams do not have a chance of making the playoffs, right? They've got 3 losses. There's just nowhere for them to go. Washington, now you're still out there playing for pride. You still want to win, but you're not going to be headed to the big time. Michigan, TCU. TCU 5-3 came back from the dead. Texas Tech. Texas Tech's just been losing ever since I put them in my top 25. Lesson learned. Cincy. That could have been Cincy here instead of Colorado, but Colorado pulled it off. And Arizona State. Honestly, we can stop doing that. We can stop doing that because there is no world where any of these teams are making the playoffs. It's just not happening. So let's focus on the teams that can actually make the playoffs. And there is one huge matchup this week. So we've got Penn State taking on Ohio State this week. So that is going to be huge. It's going to set one of them up with the inside path. If Penn State wins, they're probably going to be in the Big Ten championship because they started out higher in the rankings. I don't know what the Big Ten's tiebreaker is. So I'm not necessarily sure if it'll be Penn State over Indiana, but if Penn State wins out, I gotta imagine they've got the inside track on the conference championship. Um. Okay, Oregon plays Michigan, so I think that should be a good win there for Oregon. I can't imagine an upset there. Um, Miami versus Duke. Duke, like I said, is still a pretty good team. I think, does Duke only have one conference loss? Let me make sure. Duke football. No, they lost to Georgia Tech. Okay, yeah, so Duke's out. Now let's see, where were we at? Miami plays Duke. BYU is on bye, which is seems like much needed. They've been struggling here in these past few weeks. Penn State versus Ohio State. Iowa State versus Texas Tech, which Texas Tech is still good, but they're not super good. They're like a better than average Big 12 team. Although they don't look like it when you watch them. They're really hard to watch. I'm not gonna lie. Um, Iowa State's taking on Texas Tech. Indiana is taking on Michigan State, which Michigan State's been pretty solid here down the last few weeks too. Georgia is taking on Florida. I'm in the world's largest cocktail party. I'm going to take Georgia. World's largest outdoor cocktail party. My bad. My bad. I'd hate to offend our SEC watchers. Number 8, Ohio State is taking on Penn State. Clemson is taking on Louisville, so possible another loss incoming for Louisville. And I think these teams have separated themselves. Like these are my team. Like I think these guys are all going to win. Washington State, I can't see them really losing any more games. Army, they should win out besides Notre Dame. Boise State's taking on San Diego State. Boise State's only big game left is they'll probably rematch UNLV and the what is it the which conference are they in? The Mountain West. Okay, they're still in the Mountain West. How? Why didn't the Big 12 take them? Um, Either way, besides the point, I think they're actually going to the Pac-12 now. So Boise's taking on San Diego State. Texas is on bye, which seems like they need it as well. Pitt will be taking on SMU. So, yeah, one of these teams is going to be out. I mean, Pitt really needs to win this. If Pitt wants to be in the playoff discussions, they really need to win this. Tennessee. Uh, Tennessee's taking on Kentucky. I got Tennessee winning that one. Kansas State will be taking on Houston, and here's what I will say about Houston: they've been winning games that they shouldn't. Which it's the same Houston team that lost to OU. So if you're losing to Houston, that you don't want to be in that conversation. Notre Dame is on bye. A&M is taking on South Carolina. SMU is taking on Pitt. Washington State is on bye. Army is taking on Air Force. Alabama is on bye. LSU is on bye. Illinois is taking on Minnesota, which Minnesota actually hasn't been too bad. They're right around this range. They're 49, so they're not right around this range, but they're not a bad team. Ole Miss is taking on Arkansas. And Arkansas is also not a bad team, so I could see Arkansas pulling the upset there. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm about to the point where it's like I'm going to cut off the top 25. We're going to have a top 20 because some of these teams do not deserve to be in this top 25. Missouri 6-2, going to have a bye, and Vanderbilt taking on Auburn. Nebraska got UCLA. Colorado's on bye. Virginia Tech or Syracuse is taking on Virginia Tech. UNLV is on bye. Duke is playing Miami. Navy's taking on Rice, and Memphis is taking on UTSA. So, as far as our playoff contenders are concerned, not a whole lot of huge matchups this week. This really shouldn't. unless there's some surprise upsets, which would be fun. But unless there's some surprise upsets, I can't really see anything major happening besides this Ohio. We've got two pretty much elimination games. We've got Ohio State versus Penn State and Pitt versus SMU. Those are like the two big matchups. Other than that, I think most of these teams should keep winning. But yeah, these are the teams that I really feel like have a shot. Which even then, this area down SMU and up got a really good shot to make the playoffs. They all control their own destiny. They should all be able to make the playoffs. Now, obviously, they can't all make the playoffs. There's 17 of them. There's only 12 spots. But these teams, especially the two-loss teams, do not control their own destiny. They are literally, and even Memphis, they don't either. I mean, Memphis needs a bunch of help if they're going to make their way up there. So we'll see how it goes. Now let's go check out this AP Top 25 poll. I can't imagine me and the AP are that far off anymore because there's only a handful of teams that are even like worthy of being in the conversation. Maybe our last 5 spots are different just because it's like who do you even put there? I don't Nebraska. Everybody lost. Everybody who you would put in this range lost. So let's go check it out. AP poll. Alrighty, number 1, Oregon looks good. Number 2, Georgia also looks good. A little higher than I got them rated, but it doesn't matter. I mean, if Georgia wins out, they're getting one of the bye spots. Ohio State, number 4. So we got a 3 versus 4 matchup. Okay. This is a huge game this week. Miami at number 5. Texas at number 6, Tennessee at 7. I mean, got Tennessee a little high for me, but either way, Tennessee or Georgia, one of them's going down soon. Not this week, but I think it's next week that those two play. Notre Dame at number 8. See, they've already got Notre Dame's little cushion right here. So, which thank God for Notre Dame. Texas A&M is having a great season, so they're really helped propping up Notre Dame. BYU at number 9. So I think the only difference is our placements, which to be honest, at this point, I'm not even really sure matters. There are some, I think it matters for the Big 12 because if they're all underrated, then the chances of them getting 2 playoff spots are pretty low, but I think they have 3 contenders. Clemson at 11 with Ohio State at 11. Get this tie bullshit out of here. We all know, actually Clemson would probably beat Iowa State. But Iowa State's undefeated. Not that it matters all that much. Indiana at number 13. Damn, okay, I've got Indiana way higher. Honestly, how can you rank Ohio State higher than Indiana? I really don't know. Because Ohio State has a quality loss. That's how. Alabama number 14. See, I told you these guys have their spot ready to go. They want Alabama in the playoffs. They want it more than anything in the world. Boise State here at 15. Bro, the disrespect for Boise State. At least they moved up twice. There's no way they can't deny it anymore. I mean, all these teams are looking so ass that they have to keep moving them up. LSU fell 8 spots to number 16. Big loss. I mean, they didn't fall out of my top 25 either because who are you going to replace them with? Kansas State 7-1. I would put Kansas State over LSU. LSU does not control their own destiny anymore. If they don't control their own destiny, they should not be in the top 17. Alabama, looking at you. Pitt at number 18, Ole Miss at 19, SMU at 20. I think we've got the exact same top 25. We've got, so me and the AP poll, no, they've got Colorado. So who do we have different? Okay, Army at 21, Washington State at 22, Colorado 23, Illinois 24, and Missouri 25. Did I not tell you that Colorado had a ready-made spot? They are trying to push the Colorado narrative. But they're not better than Nebraska. We already saw that game. And Nebraska is not better than Illinois. So Colorado shouldn't be hated ahead of Illinois either. But not super important. Missouri. Okay, Vanderbilt. Okay, they put Colorado over Vanderbilt. I guess that's fine. But Vanderbilt has a way better win than Colorado does. Memphis, Tulane, Navy. Dude, I've got Tulane rated so far down because of the Oklahoma loss. Also, Oklahoma, we are in a bad we're having bad times. Navy 23, Louisville 5, Arkansas 4, UNLV, Louisiana Lafayette. Louisiana Lafayette might control their own destiny. They've only got one loss, and they could win their conference. But I don't think they're going to get past. We would need a bunch of chaos for ULL to actually matter. And South Carolina won. Okay, so we've got one difference in the top 25, and that is Colorado. I went with Vandy. They went with Colorado. I just can't rank Colorado over Nebraska. I don't want to put Nebraska in my top 25. I think Vandy versus Nebraska would actually be a really good game. Maybe we'll get that outside of the playoffs in a bowl game this year. But yeah, no, I think these are our playoff teams. I might do a playoff video this week where we go through and look at all the scenarios for the playoffs. But I think these are our teams. Somewhere in this top 17 are our 12 playoff teams, with possibilities of these guys working their way in. But really, I think it's Colorado and Alabama. If all these other teams lose around them, I think Colorado and Alabama will be the two lost teams that make the playoffs. Why? Because it would make the most money. So that's why. Alrighty, honestly, not a bad AP poll. We finally met up. Me and the AP have finally come to a consensus. Other than Vandy and Nebraska, or Vandy and Colorado, it's 24 for 24, or 24 out of 25. So I'd say that's about as close as you can get. But yeah, that's gonna do it for my top 25 and the AP poll reactions. Finally, the AP poll is not the worst thing I've ever seen. So were they more right or was I more right? I guess I was hating on A&M and Notre Dame and LSU all season, so it's kind of on me. But I was also giving praise to SMU, Washington State, Army. I had Army ranked before those losers did. I also took Alabama out of my top 25 last week. That was a mistake. But Alabama still does not control their own destiny. They need other people to lose around them. But yeah, that's going to do it for the top 25 this week. I think we've got a pretty fun slate left. There's still some there's some key matchups to look forward to. Mainly the Georgia versus Tennessee game, the Texas versus Texas A&M game. Oregon doesn't really look like they have a loss on their schedule. They look like they're going to win out. Obviously, we've got Penn State and Ohio State, and Ohio State versus Tennessee. At the very end of the season, if Iowa State and Kansas State are winning out, they play. So that will determine who's going to take the other Big 12 spot in the conference championship. And Pitt plays Clemson, and SMU plays Clemson. So Pitt and SMU both need to win that game. If they do both win that game, though, I have no idea. I'm really curious to see what would happen if Pitt and SMU won and if Ohio State loses to Indiana and Penn State. Because that's going to create a cluster. That's going to be a total clusterfuck. Mainly for the conference championships. I think in that case, all 6 of those teams would make the playoffs. But I feel like that's pretty unlikely. Maybe the conference championship loser. I'm really curious if the conference championship loser, how they're going to handle them with the playoffs. Because a lot of these teams will end up playing each other in the conference championships. Like if, say, Kansas State wins, Kansas State plays BYU again, and BYU or Kansas State wins either way. Like if BYU won, they clearly get the playoff spot. But if Kansas State won, well, BYU's also got to win over Kansas State. So, I don't know. It's going to be really fun to see how they handle the conference championship aspect of it. That's going to do it for my top 25 this week. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me get one last little... I got to get the screenshot for the thumbnail. But this is going to be the top 25. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Which matchups are you guys still most excited for? And let me know what y'all think about my poll and the AP poll. Huge shout outs to Levi Gamerdad or Levy Gamerdad. I'm not sure if it's Levi or Levy. But he always comes here in the comments, gives us well thought out reasons for why he thinks what he thinks. And I appreciate that, man. So let me know what you guys think about the college football playoffs this year. Who are you guys looking at? Who are your 12 teams? I guess that's the real question. Who are your 12 teams to make the playoffs? But thank you guys so much for watching, and we will catch you. Also, we might do a playoff video this week, so keep an eye out for that. But thank you guys all so much for watching. We'll catch you next Sunday, and yeah, I hope you guys all had a good weekend, and looking forward to another good week of college football next. Peace out, Girl Scouts.